進行第6屆立法會研究在香港實施聯合國安全理事會就制裁事宜。
Now, let us start the subcommittee to examine the implementation in Hong Kong of resolutions of the UN Security Council in relation to sanctions. We need to elect the chairman. According to House Rules 20 and Appendix 4, we'd like to ask members for a nomination for chairmanship. A valid nomination should be made orally by a member and seconded by at least another member orally and be accepted by the member nominated. Can we have a nomination, please? Ms. Tanya Chen, I nominate Mr. Kenneth Leung. Is that okay? You have to ask whether there is a seconder. Maybe no one seconds. We second. Yes, we second. I accept nomination. And because of this, I hope another member will take the chair because I don't know whether there are other nominations. Let me ask whether there are other nominations. Let me vacate the chair first.
Do
we have other nominations for chairmanship? If not, I declare Mr. Kenneth Leung elected chairman of the subcommittee ipso facto. Congratulations. Please take the chair.
我想問一問各位委員。
Let's ask members whether we need a deputy chairman. No views or no need? Okay. Members have no particular views on this one. Let us go into the agenda proper. Thank you very much. First, we'll invite the administration to come in. We have Ms. Vivian Sum and her team from the Economic Development and Commerce Bureau and also some staff members from the DOJ.
係各位同事午安，咁就嗱喺10月14至28號期間呢，喺內務委員會入邊呢，就討論過幾份嘅文件，包括呢係LN 111-2016。
We discussed a few papers at the House Committee during the period 14 to the 28th of October. We discussed 3 legal notices. And the 3 legal notices have been referred to the subcommittee for processing. In other words, we need to deal with 3 papers. Members, you are from the legal field. I would propose that we use the English version to examine the regulations. Would you object? Because actually, many government officials have reflected to me that if we deal with legal documents, they would prefer to use the English version. Let us look at the English version of the United Nations Sanctions Libya Regulation 2011 Amendment Regulation 2016. This is the sanction document relating to Libya. Let us invite the officials to introduce that paper to us, please. Yes, thank you, Chairman. With regard to the background of the regulation, I would speak on it, and then my colleague will speak on the content of the regulation. Let us talk about the UN Sanctions Libya Regulation 2011 Amendment Regulation 2016. Libya is a country in North Africa. It declared independence in 1951. Starting from 2011, there were different protests against the power of government, and there were therefore a series of violations, and therefore 2 resolutions were passed by the UN, including the sanctions against the transfer of arms and also a sanction against airplanes flying over Libya. In August 2011, there was a declaration for liberation by the transitional government. And at that time, therefore, in September 2011 and October 2011, 2 resolutions were passed by the Security Council to remove certain weapon sanctions and also the freezing of assets and also the no-fly zones over Libya. And also, it did not forbid member states to fly over Libya. But even so, by 2014, the Security Council was of the view that Libya continues to constitute a threat to international peace and security. Therefore, in March and August 2014, there were 2 resolutions to expand the sanctions. And these are to prohibit states from providing bunkering services to boats and other sanctions. And in January 2015, the Security Council decided to extend the sanctions. By March this year, the Security Council passed UNSCR 2278, which is the amendment regulation we talked about, to renew the sanctions against Libya for another year until the 31st of July 2017. We received the instruction of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the PRC in 2016, and on the 30th of June 2016, we gazetted the amendment regulation, and it was implemented on the day of gazettal. In terms of trade, in 2015, amongst our trade partners in the world, Libya ranks 149th with a trade volume of $93 million. Most of it is for intraport trade, and the main business is telecommunications. Since the business has nothing to do with arms or weaponry, therefore the sanctions against Libya will not affect the business between the 2 places. Can I defer to Ms. Law about to tell you about the regulation? Members, you can refer to the Legislative Council brief, which is CITB CR 95/53/1, Annex D. That's a black line copy. Ms. Law will be able to take us through that version. Please use the black line version. Ms. Law. Yes, thank you. Yes. Ms. Law, over to you. Thank you. I propose to refer members to Annex D, so we will know the amendments. In a gist, the amendment regulation follows the UNSCR 2278 to extend sanctions against Libya. In the original regulation, certain illegal exports sanctions have come into play on the 31st of March. And this time around, we are just adding in those into the original regulation. Let us go through the marked up copy one by one. Part 1, interpretation. The first change has to do with page 2, license. Yes. We added section 15A1. Some vessels can have license issued. So under interpretation, we have included this section. And when we come to 15A1, I'll explain again. Any questions? Please continue, Ms. Law. The next change is page 3, relevant entity. Just a textual change, a technical one. we replaced in accordance with under. I'd like to ask the DOJ, is it that when you do your drafting now, you usually do not use in accordance with? Is it that you have changed your drafting style? Well, it depends on the circumstance. We'll use different wording in different cases. This is not a uniform construction. I think the lawyers here may be interested. Technically, what is the difference between in accordance with and under? How are they different? Thank you, Chairman, for the question. Well, it's difficult to give a general answer, but in a gist, well, it really has to depend on the different cases. In Section 38A, the CE is empowered to do certain things, and so we usually say under. But for in accordance with, very often we will say in accordance with a section. And if the section has to do with some procedures, then we'll say in accordance with the procedures in a certain section. This is the general interpretation, but it really depends on the merit of each case. Other members, any questions? If this is your explanation, I hope that in future, scrutinized legal documents and bills, I hope to see some consistency. And I hope we will not be too confused. I can understand your explanation. Please continue, Ms. Law. Page 4, relevant person. The same textual change. That is to replace in accordance with under. And then Resolution 2146. Since it has been extended, so we will say that it has been extended by Resolution 2278. Questions? Please continue. Part 2, prohibitions. Section 2, no change. Section 3, please go to page 9. Also page 8, a change of punctuations. Page 10, sections 3C and 3D have expired. And we have replaced them with 3E and 3F. In fact, the wording remains the same. I'd like to ask a technical question. Why don't you just change the resolution number? Why do you cross out the entire paragraph? Is that your convention? This is because the provisions have become invalid on the 31st of March and they no longer exist. And we have to rewrite them, therefore. Okay, we understand. Any questions? Please continue. Section 4, page 13. Section 5, and then Section 6. Section 7, no change. Okay. Page 20. 7C and 7D, the same applies. They have expired. So they have been deleted. And 7E and 7F have taken their place. The style of writing is the same as the expired sections. Section 8, Section 9, no change. And then Section 10D, 10E, 10F, again, they have expired. And we have again written 10G, 10H, and 10I. Is it that the wording has not been changed at all? Not at all. Section 11. And all the way to Section 14. In fact, including Section 15, there is no change.
跟住就到 Section 15A.
Then is Section 15A, and we added, because we provide certain services to some vessels, according to the agreement, permission is given in some circumstances. So once the license is given, it can be done. Was this not there before 15A? Now, the previous wording was a bit different. Now, previously, it was written as an exception. That is, if the vessel is, for certain reasons, for instance, humanitarian reasons, has to provide the service, then it wouldn't be restricted under the provisions. Now, we look at the resolution now where it says the UN committee has to give permission before the service can be provided. So the SAR government, how does it know that the services would be provided? They have to apply to us first, and then we report to the UN committee, and then we can issue the license. Now, the 15A procedures were absent before, right? Now, it was worded differently. It was worded as an exception. Where's the previous section? It was 10E1. That is, it was already deleted. It has expired. 10E1. Okay, I see it. Ms. Law, please resume. Now, section 1718 unchanged, and we come to section 19. It's only because 3C has expired, it becomes 3E, so the provision number is changed. And then sections 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, through 39, they haven't changed. And the only thing is that at the end, we added section 42 about the duration. That is, the newly added provisions will expire on the 31st of July 2017. Why do you use the number 42? Why don't you use 40? Or because previously, when we talked about duration, it was 41, so we followed that order. Where's section 40? I believe it has expired. It no longer exists. Understand. But when the layman reads, then it looks rather strange. Ms. Chan, let me supplement. Now, sometimes, why is it not 41A? Why is it 42? Because there were usually when we add A, because when there's 40 or 41, then we have to add something, then we add a provision, suffix A. Now, when the layman sees the absence of sections 40 and 41, now can you make that explicit? Now, we would write it as expired. Now, this version is to facilitate members because it expired in the previous exercise, so it's not shown. Understood. Chow Ho Ting, any question? Sorry. I was looking at 15A. It's okay, thank you. I can allow you time. Sorry. Maybe I was a bit slow. No, your wording that's given for the provision of service. So 15A is to spell out the requirements. Now, you said that in AB it's necessary for humanitarian purpose or for the ship to return to Libya. Is that to clarify that circumstance? Now, the original Section 20 specifies the circumstances, but it didn't say that a license has to be acquired, and we make that explicit now, the requirement for a license. Any more questions from Cha Ho Ting? Sorry, I'm rather new. I'd like to ask. Now, it wasn't there before. Now we have the license. Now, what's the reason behind? Is there any special reason? Is that an extra step for permission to make it more clear? Now, previously the UN requirement is that under certain circumstances, certain services can be provided for certain vessels, but the UN has to be notified first. And the previous wording was that under certain circumstances, the previous restrictions do not apply. But as the SAR government, how do we know that there is this service to be provided, and how do we notify the UN? So they have to come to apply for a license, and the government would be aware of it, and then we can notify the UN. Yes, I see. It makes sense. Thank you. Any more questions, Mr. Chow? It's okay. We need to discuss. I'd just like to know the reasons. Thank you. We can resume. Any more? We have completed the perusal. Any question from the legal advisor? Okay, we have looked at that. So the Libya Regulation 2011 has been reviewed, and we look at the next item of agenda. The next one is the UN sanctions, Democratic Republic of Congo Regulation 2016. So we discussed the Congo one first. Is there another colleague from the legal division? Sorry. Now there's some problem with our audio recording system. We have to hold the meeting for 2 to 3 minutes for our engineers to fix the system. About 2 or 3 minutes.